Wednesday, April the 23rd. Lake level's right at 9:15. Water temperature's been pretty consistent. It's been about 61, 62 degrees in the morning and been warming up about 63, 64. Fish are starting to spawn, pretty much all over the lake. I have seen some, been catching a few post-spawn fish, and I'm seeing some little fry in the backs of some of the pockets. But we're just now starting to get into the heart of the spawn. So, it's going to last probably all of May, with the way we've been backed up all spring. But it's kind of a fun time to be fishing. We're catching fish on probably just about anything you want to throw if you throw it in the right place. The fish are by no means jumping in the boat, but there's a lot of different ways to catch them. The majority of them are shallow. What we've been doing a lot of the last week or so, we're catching a lot of fish on main lake flat gravel points. That's probably where the majority of all the numbers about fish are coming from. I'll get into it in a little bit how to try to catch some bigger fish, but the numbers have been out on these points where the fish are going back into spawn, and they're mainly, Kentucky's, the smallmouth are starting to show up real good, and there's a few largemouths out there with them. Some of the bigger largemouths seem to be in the steeper pockets where there's bigger rock. But as far as them fish out on them main lake points, now, all them points won't have them, and a lot of times you might go to a point 2 or 3 times in a day and only get there, and have the fish biting for you one of the 3 times. The fish are just moving up and moving down, and they're going to be doing this for the next month or so. Because what you're going to have is you've got pre-spawn fish that are staging on these points. They're working their way back into the pockets. Then after they get done spawning, they're going to come back out to the same points before they go to the deep water summer homes. But there's been a topwater bite early. Been catching some on a spook, and some on a jointed redfin, and also a straight redfin. This is the time of year from now throughout to wintertime. You want to have some type of topwater bait tied on and have it handy in case you start to see some fish schooling, and they're apt to do it in the middle of the day. Right now most of my topwater action has been first thing in the morning. But a lot of the way we're catching these fish on these, we kind of call them do-nothing points, because they don't look like anything special. A lot of them don't hardly have any timber on them. Timber doesn't hurt, but you don't have to have it. If it's real calm and slick, I've been catching them on a little 4-inch chompers, either a Yamamoto or a Chompers grub or a Bass Pro XPS brand, a 4 or 5-inch, smoke with black flake, a smoke with red flake, a salt and pepper. A lot of the color difference is just kind of between your ears. Whatever you got the most confidence in, whatever you think works best. Now, what we've been doing real well on also is little swim baits. And this is the same head I'm throwing the grub on. It's a little 1/4 ounce ball-headed jig head. Now, this is a buddy of mine makes these called Danger Close. It's kind of like a Kitech swim bait, but it's a little bit smaller. But the Kitechs have been working real well also. And then there's another brand, I think Bass Pro's got a knockoff from the Kitech that'll work as well. But it seems like you need a real soft bait that's got real good tail action. Similar to a single tail grub, how you get a lot of tail action out of it. And the depth that you're fishing it, for the most part, I'm keeping the boat in about 20 foot of water where I can make a long cast almost to the bank. A lot of times some of the bites will be 2 to 5 feet. Other times they'll be clear back out there at the boat. And you just got to kind of play around with how far you let the bait drop down, let the fish tell you, how deep they are. And a lot of these fish, when you're out there on these points idling around or even fishing, you can see them suspended on your electronics out there. Another bait that's been working good, and I'll throw this kind of in conjunction with the topwater. And it's a Lucky Strike scrounger head. This is a 1/2 ounce head, and they've got them in 1/4 ounce, 3/8, half, and I think even 5/8. But I've got I think it's a 4.8 Kitech swim bait on it. And what you do with this, you fish it the same way as you do the grub or the swim bait. You just cast it out, count it down to whatever depth, except this one's got a lot more action in it, and you seem to catch a little bigger fish on the bigger bait. This is also something we'll work on main lake and secondary points that's got a lot of timber on it. And also the Alabama rig, I mean, if the wind picks up, a lot of times to where you're having trouble feeling the light line bite on these gravel points, pick that A-rig up with either Swim Fluke Juniors or the same swim baits I was showing you there. And a lot of times you'll catch 4 to 5 to 1 on the Alabama rig versus the grub. You can throw a jerk bait out there on the same points. It's kind of unlimited, what you can throw. Excuse me. Out there where them grub fish are, like I say, you can catch them on a jerk bait early, you can catch them on a topwater. Now, one of the most consistent things, other than the grub and on them gravel points, has been the little split shot rig. And I've been using a Zoom Fish Doctor, but a little French fry or centipede will work fine too. And green pumpkin, watermelon candy is kind of hard to beat. I'm just rigging it up, about 12 to 16 inches up, a little number 3 split shot with a 1/0 offset worm hook. And I think any finesse worm will work. It doesn't have to be a Fish Doctor or a centipede, but any small 4 to 5 inch worm. I think you could probably even throw a lizard. I've been throwing a baby brush hog some. And where this seems to be working good, if I can't get bit on the grub, or if the grub fish seem like they're on bottom, I've been using the split shot. And once you get past the points inside the pockets where these fish are spawning, that's where the split shot seems to be working a little better. Now the whole key to it is you can't fish it too slow. I think what you're doing is you can't see a lot of these fish, but they're actually on beds. And when that little worm's coming across the bed, the fish are picking it up and moving it. So it's a real subtle bite. Works good, when there's hardly no wind or you're in a pocket that's protected from the wind. Now, as far as trying to catch a little bit better fish, I've been finding more largemouths in the creek arms where the banks are steeper, more 45-degree chunk rock banks. And I'll throw either a pig sticker jig, a Snowden jig with a Zoom speed craw, or I've been throwing a Cinco back in there. And last week I told you I was going to show you a couple different ways I fished the Cinco. Now here's one way. It's a mustad hook. It's got like a 32nd ounce weight built into the hook. Got a little wire weed guard, so I can fish it around the trees and around the brush. And I had some people ask me about the questions on the moss. Well, the lake is pretty much done turning over from Shell Knob to Baxter, and it's working its way down from Baxter to the dam where the lake is actually turning over, and it's kind of a funky color in spots. But the good thing about that is it's broken a lot of that moss and algae that was on the bottom, broke it loose, so that you can actually fish a bottom bait with, without getting all that slime on it. There's still some areas that have it, but it's a lot better, in the Kimberly area now than it was, say, 2 weeks ago. But back to the Cinco. I like to throw it on spinning gear because I can get the bait exactly where I want it, and I can feel the bite a little bit better. But I'm just kind of dead sticking it. I'm throwing it out there, setting in about 10 to 12 feet of water, trying to make long casts if the water is real clear, so I stay away from the fish where they don't see me. And most of the time they'll just pick it up and swim with it. Now another way to rig it up, I think you can get these at a lot of the tackle stores. It looks like an ink pen cartridge, and you actually slide your O-rings onto the cartridge. Then you take the O-ring, slip it off of that onto the Cinco itself. Now the reason we do this a lot is these Cincos, when you put a hook in them like this, the baits are so soft, especially the Yamamotos, they're only good for 1 or 2 fish. But by doing this deal here with the O-ring, then I'll take it's a little Gamakatsu hook. It's like a drop shot hook, but it's got a little plastic fiber weed guard. What you want to do is hook the hook right into the O-ring. This way here, the hook's not going through the middle of the bait, which is making it brittle. And also, Well, the main thing is it just makes your bait last a whole lot longer. And you can take this little weed guard, slide it over the hook to protect it from the brush. So there's a couple different ways to fish that. And you can even fish it, just take a regular worm hook and fish it Texas style. You can fish it the same way. I like to rig it wacky. It's got a little bit different fall, especially for them fish that are on the beds. So, if you get a chance, you need to get out there. The fishing is just awesome. It's going to do nothing but get better, regardless of what the weather does. If it gets real windy, you just got to try to find a few protected areas to get in to use these techniques. But till next week, good luck, good fishing.